Well, I got it with $5. I have cerebral palsy. Ah, strong opener. I'm curious who you feel should be allowed to use the R word or in what context it is acceptable. Also love the streams. Okay, it's been a while since I've done this, so I'm going to bust out the manifesto real quick. Okay, so first of all, let's list every slur in the English lexicon. No. Um, so when it comes to like who gets to use what slurs, I am a slur anarchist. I don't really care if white people use the N word or whatever, you know. It's more about like on an inherent level, I don't think there's harm. In a practical, like contextual, cultural level, setting boundaries for who gets to say what, even if they're arbitrary and difficult to like really maintain, can be a decent way of establishing rules of decorum that, if tripped, can inform people of bad ideological positions, right? So, like, we say only black people can say the N word, but Latin people have been saying it for a while, and also Asian people in at least LA. If they can't say the N word, they never got the memo. It seems like there's a lot, and there are white people who grow up in like the inner city who say it pretty freely, but and the black people around them are fine with it because it's the circumstances of their growth, um, or of their upbringing. So I don't think there's like an essential quality here. You know, it's kind of a fluid categorization. When it comes to saying retard, which I'm trying to cut down on a little bit, mostly because I want to stay creative with my insults. You know, I want some diversity here. Um, but when it comes to saying that, the issue here is that when it comes to impugning people for their, you know what? I mean, I'll just be direct. You say you have cerebral palsy, right? You understand that words that can hurt you for who you are, or words that are meant to hurt you, don't begin and end with slurs, right? Like, there are probably literally hundreds of terms and phrases that people could refer to you through that you would be offended by, or that would be meant or at least interpreted in a harmful way, that aren't slurs, right? The reason for this is because ableism is baked into our language. The lack of ability that we impugn through ableism is something that we have a lot of like linguistic demarkers for. We have a wide range of acceptable references to. So that's not the case with stuff like racism and sexism. You can fully obliterate racism and sexism, even through implication, from your lexicon, because these are very much add-ons. But when it comes to impugning people for lack of ability, think about it. Even saying that a person is heartless is a kind of ableism. That's not a joke, is it? People who are heartless lack empathy, and lacking empathy can be a symptom of a number of psychological conditions. You might very well be impugning somebody based on a just characteristic lack of ability they have. But you would never say like, you can't call someone heartless, that's ableist. Like, you wouldn't do that, right? The reason for that is that our understanding of what is or isn't acceptable ableism is totally fucking arbitrary. It's more arbitrary than like anything else. It's like the most arbitrary definition of bigotry imaginable. It's like, it's so fluid and it's so dependent. And the thing when it comes to the word retard is that in my mind, when I imagine that term, it's just saying stupid plus one to me. I've never in my life like looked at a person with like Down syndrome or whatever and thought like retard as like a category. You know, it's never like, now that's just a me thing. There are people for whom that association exists, but I also know there are non-slurs that you could use to refer to a person with cerebral palsy or autism or who are in a wheelchair or whatever, you know, and they're not slurs, but they're still really hurtful. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that I want to move the discussion away from the actual term and more on the intent and the outcome, right? Because I know, because I have friends who are both mentally and physically disabled in some way or another. I know that if you're like friends with a person in a wheelchair or whatever, if you're friends with them, you could say a lot of wacky shit about them. You're friends, you know? You could, if there's a person, you know, if I have a friend, you know, cerebral palsy, I don't have a friend with cerebral palsy, but if I did, I was good friends with them, and hey, what's up, retard, you know? If they're my friend, I assume they would be okay with this. But I know that a person who speaks to them with even a little bit of like contemptuous patronization on like public transport, that could really get their goat, right? Even if no slur is involved. So I guess I don't think the slur is the relevant thing there. I think it's more complicated than that. And to me, of all the slurs that have kind of an abstract distinction between the harm and the, sort of contextual use, I think retard is by far the most ambiguous. So I think that it leans far enough on the side of use it if you want to. It's a mean word, but I don't necessarily think that its frivolous use contributes to harm against differently abled people any more so than the general range of language we have, which refers to ability, already does. Does that make sense? Sorry, guys, that was like really, really long, but it was a good question, and you know, but yeah. And some people are going to say that this is just like a cope thing and I just want to say slurs, whatever. And if I want to, like, I do this ironically. If I wanted to sincerely do it, I could just say, like, oh, well, I'm autistic and have ADHD and manic depression, so I can say it because I've suffered but I don't really believe that, right? Like that, I've said that as a joke, like, well, I can say it, right? But I don't really believe that. My reasons are other. But if I wanted to be cynical, I would pull that one out, I guess, because, Okay, yeah, why guy? That was the thing. Okay, I'm wrapping up these donos and going to bed.